I actually don't think that I got many benefits that I was trying to receive from a morning routine. Yes, I got to start my day on my own terms, and that's always very powerful, but I wasn't getting the benefits that my soul was actually seeking in that morning routine. And now when I'm able to check in with myself, kind of like what you were just sharing, it's like we're getting what we need. That's so much different than checking off a list.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So today's episode is super fun because I have my business partner, my business bestie, my favorite person to talk all things business and life with me live in real life, in person. And we don't ever get to do this.
No, I'm so excited. I feel like this has been a long time coming.
It is. This is our YouTube debut. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
This is our dream TV set. We're just putting it out there into the universe.
Yes. If there's any producers watching, call us.
So I decided I would start with this question today that whenever I ask people, what do they want us to talk about? This is the top question we get. And I don't really know why, but also I am this person who's really curious about just the little nuances of people's lives and what makes them successful. So the question is, what is your morning routine? I feel like we hear this every single time we talk about, or we ask the audience, well, okay, what do you want us to hear us talk about? And it's true because even though I think our morning routines really have evolved, and we'll talk a little bit about that, it is the routines that are consistent throughout our day that do support us, especially in the really expansive season that we're in. But I was thinking about it because the last time we did an episode on this, you guys can go back and check it. It was before you became a mom.
I don't even think I was pregnant yet.
I mean, I'm sure your routines in general have changed so much since then. So what does that kind of look like for you right now in this season?
Well, first off, I'm so excited to be talking about this because I low-key feel like I've been gatekeeping my morning routine. I feel like I've been kind of off the radar where I used to share a lot more of my morning routines on social media and stuff. And I've just been kind of being and doing more than sharing. So I'm excited to dive in today. But I would say everything has changed about my morning routine since becoming a mom, but my morning routine has never gone away.
Yeah.
And I think that has been the foundation of why I've been able to continue showing up the way that I have through bringing a full-on child into this world.
You made a person.
I made a person, have to keep them alive, have to keep a business alive. And I would say my commitment to keeping a morning routine, even in a life that some could look at and feel like there was no time for, has actually been what has been my foundation for all of this growth that I've experienced the last few years.
And you have forever since we became friends been that person who you just model it in a way that it feels very doable. I feel like especially watching you become a mom has been the coolest thing in the world because we talk about this all the time. I think the fear for me has always been the way that obviously impacts everything about your life and your schedule. And I've just watched you really step into this season so beautifully, so powerfully, and create new routines that work for you, but also that work for your beautiful daughter, and have you show up as the most present mom. I actually think you're in your best ever in the business and just what we're doing. And normally that's not the story that people tell.
No, not at all. I'm I'll try not to make this a motherhood podcast, but I do feel I'm where's the best way for me to go? Maybe just sharing a little bit more around what my routine looks like now that I'm a mom, because there's so many ways I could go around motherhood and all of that stuff.
Yes, I want to hear the routine, but I totally didn't even tell you I was going to ask this, but it's just right there right now, because I actually think that for me, you've been such an expander for what motherhood can look like. And I do know there's so many moms who listen to this, or women who want to be moms, and hearing from people who are really making it their own is so powerful.
Yeah. I think I went into motherhood knowing myself really well and knowing my personality, that I actually am someone who just needs a little extra intention behind my self-care in order to show up. And my number one priority in this life is to show up as the most authentic, grounded version of myself for Arya. And that's so important to me. So even on the days when I have felt like, okay, this is crazy, she's waking up at a different time every day, how do I create this? Yeah. I made a promise to myself that I was going to figure it out. I was going to create that time. And when she was a newborn, it would be 10 minutes. It would be 5 minutes sometimes, honestly. And I think just starting with that, less rules. I had to take away all the rules of my morning routine.
We really like a structure.
Yes. I used to thrive off of like, this is my morning routine. Like go back and listen to the 2022 Hannah. I was like, I did this and then I did this and I did this. And while that served me, I knew that it wasn't going to serve me going into motherhood. And so I started when she was a newborn with like, I would just wake up, even if I heard her starting to wrestle, and I would like do my skincare and I would listen to like a little 5-minute video or something and then I built off of that. As I started to understand what her schedule was, it was like, okay, now I can like stretch or read a chapter of a book. And anybody that is a mom knows that their schedules change as soon as you think you've adapted to a schedule. So it's been like allowing, and I think, this is like a conversation in itself of like allowing myself to check in every single morning and say, what do I need today? What's realistic today? What like is the best use to make me just like feel so good, whether that be 5 minutes or I love like a juicy like 2-hour morning routine every once in a while when you just need it. Yeah. So the flexibility has been everything.
And I think that's the parallel between like both of maybe the changes in this season, even though the reason for the change maybe was a little bit different. But I have settled into this awareness that a lot of times when I was approaching it with this 5-step checklist or even just not paying attention to how my body felt. Like if I'm like today recording all day, I'm not going to be at the gym tomorrow. Like the most nourishing thing for me is probably a long walk and sleeping in. And so really instead adapting my morning routine to what I need that day. And I think for both of us, this season has been one where we're just learning to be really very, very much more like intuitive and just present to our own needs. And I realize now looking back how much when I was so structured with it, I was never living up to this impossible morning routine standard. This is now going a lot deeper. I'm like, this is just like in life, was never living up to these impossible standards. So if you think about that in terms of a morning routine, I was starting the morning feeling like I had failed at something.
Totally. I understand that so much. And just like the feeling of when I think back to like the old version of my morning routine, it wasn't actually nourishing me because I was doing it out of like the thought that I had to versus really like checking in with myself. And now I really will just like, I'll put my hand on my heart and like on my belly and I'll just like, what do you need today?
Yeah.
Like, do you need nature? Like, do you need to sit in meditation for a really long time? Is that going to be guided? Is that going to be, and just like asking what I need. And what I will say is I can look back at that sweet version of me who was doing this militant, morning routine with so much love and gratitude because it was a stepping stone to get me to this type of routine. But in hindsight, when I look back, I actually don't think that I got many benefits that I was trying to receive from a morning routine. Yes, I got to start my day on my own terms, and that's always very powerful, but I wasn't getting the benefits that my soul was actually seeking in that morning routine. And now when I'm able to check in with myself, kind of like what you were just sharing, it's like we're getting what we need. That's so much different than checking off a list.
One of the biggest things, I want to hear maybe some of the changes or what some of your staples look like for you right now. I know I was sharing with you earlier today because we started our morning really early and I felt my hunger kick in because I'm used to now eating breakfast a lot earlier. That was one of the things where I would wake up and I would either go to the gym right away or I would dive right into work, which sometimes I actually still do. If that feels like, ooh, I've got this creative idea, I feel like writing right now, I'll let myself do like 30 minutes to an hour of work before I walk or meditate or whatever.
Because you're checking in with yourself.
Because I'm checking in with myself, and that's like, I can tell when that's coming from, like the desire to do that is coming from, I feel behind, I feel like I'm not doing enough. That's a very different feeling for me than like, ooh, I've got this like creative idea. But eating earlier in the day. And if you guys haven't listened to that episode with Dr. Amy Shaw, that literally what she talks about to do, like change in your morning routine, getting sunlight right away, a little bit of movement, and then what to put in your breakfast has been a game changer for me. Mm-hmm. It's been so radical. So I feel like even just that simple shift, like when I just make one shift at a time, I can actually measure, is this working for me? Versus trying to do everything at once and not feeling good, but not knowing which element of that routine wasn't feeling good for me.
Totally. I feel like I'm like still thinking in my brain right now of the episode with Dr. Amy, because it was such a good one. Like you're talking about just like those little tiny shifts. I will say now, like going into being a mom, I do have help, which I'm so grateful for, but she doesn't come until like 8:30 or 9:30 some days. And Aria girl is up at like 5 a.m.
She likes to party early morning.
I've really just kind of like worked her into my morning routine. You know, I have committed, especially since listening to that episode with Amy. This is something I've always mostly tried to do. And now I'm like, no, this year is the year that I fully commit to not getting on my phone until after I've been outside. Mm-hmm. So I'm like waking up, I'll feed Aria, I'll spend time with her. And I've really tried to work her into my morning routine. So we go on a walk together every morning, so that I can get outside and get nature. And I've noticed that for me, nature is very powerful. Like me being outside and fresh air and sunlight and just that connection with something that feels so much bigger than myself. Mm-hmm. It makes everything else seem so small in comparison. So we'll do that. And I play sound bowls for Aria. She really, really loves them.
I love that.
And so even if you are someone who's a mom or thinking of becoming a mom, although I don't get to some of the things until later in my day, and on days that I don't have help, I'll still do this during her nap. I'll do a meditation. I'll do whatever like my soul wants that day. I'll do, whether it's like a lot more journaling or maybe I'll go back to sound. But that time with Aria can still actually be part of my morning routine, and she brings so much like joy and laughter to it.
I think anyone listening to this, like if you don't find yourself in like either of our examples, like the main thing I think we want people to take away is take time to listen and tune in with what you need. And maybe your routine isn't a morning routine. Maybe it's a lunchtime routine where you do something that fills you up. And I think overall, that's probably the biggest thing that we both focus on are like, what starts in the morning for us, but actually carries over into the day so we can show up as our best. How has that shifted for you, like actually flowing into the entirety of your day?
Oh my gosh. I feel like it's just so funny. I keep going back to like the version of me that used to be so, it's morning routine or like life is in shambles. And like, I actually believe now that my morning routine is part of my daily rituals that are allowing me to show up in a certain way. So it's like, how am I like being? How grounded am I? How quickly can I catch myself when I fall off during the day and bring myself back? You know, even if it's something as simple as, am I feeling hungry? I should stop what I'm doing and I should go eat, because that's like the most nourished version of me that's going to have energy and be able to be like vibrant. So it's just that constant from the morning when I'm checking in going, okay, how does my morning want to go? It's so much more than a morning routine now. And we even talked about this when we were talking about naming the episode. We're like, we almost just want to name it like daily rituals, because we know that yes, setting yourself up in the morning is a beautiful start, but unless you're actually carrying that throughout the whole day, you're not truly getting the benefit. So it's just staying like present to yourself, how you're feeling, and being able to constantly like check in and be like, what do I need right now to really just like feel good? And I'm telling you, even in the midst of what could feel like chaos running a business or people needing you or your inbox, you can, if you commit to finding those spaces where you're able to check in with yourself.
So true. One of the specific questions that we got was from Tamia, who's one of our listeners in the UK. We love her.
Hi, Tamia.
She's also a new mom, so
Aww.
I'm sure her life and morning routines have really changed. But she asked specifically how things have shifted, because we've shared really openly that last year, so 2023, our motto was do less and do it better.
Yeah.
That motto for me came with so many lessons. And it has really impacted like the flow and structure of my day. How has that looked for you?
The first thing that's really coming to mind right now is just the fact that my morning routine isn't like a laundry list of things. Like before, well, it kind of is, because you guys, I'm not gonna lie, I'm obsessed with wellness, and I have like quite the lineup in the morning. So, but that's something that brings me joy. It feels like self-care. It feels exciting. Whereas before, my list was like, first I'm gonna do this for 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna do that for 5 minutes, and then this is gonna be 15 minutes. And I think just like actually some of the days that feel most powerful to me are when I have a really intentional 20-minute like meditation or sitting in silence and like grounding myself. And it's like, that is doing less and doing it better, because although I'm not, doing this whole list of things to set up my morning, I'm doing the one thing that is actually completely changing my energy that I'm going to be able to carry out with me throughout the day. And sometimes it's not meditation. Sometimes it's a longer walk in the morning. Sometimes I'll I live by the beach. I know that that's like such a blessing, but I'll go down to the beach and be able to like put my feet in the sand. But it's just like the allowance of it to be simple. That's, I think, where allowing it to be feels beautiful. What about you?
We did actually create like so much more space. It took some time. And to be clear, we didn't just start off the new year saying, do less and do it better. We're just dropping everything right now. It took time to like hire our amazing team and to put things in place where we were eventually clearing more space for ourselves. So I feel like for me, it took until like halfway through the year to settle into that, specifically after the event. That's more than halfway through the year, but I found myself, I think for the first time ever, finding so much more space in my calendar, which we are identifying as like really good for me.
Yeah, very important.
Yes. And that, I think, has allowed me to tap into everything else we've been saying of like really checking in with what do I need? Because now I realize I was so much more reactive before, and I felt like I was always in a hurry.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to cram too much into my calendar in general, also in the morning. I wasn't being super intentional with like where my energy feels best. And even still, I have some work to do. We were talking leading up to like this filming day. I was like, okay, new rule for Lindsay, completely clear calendar day before a full day of filming. Like noticing how my energy feels the best, how it has me set up to show up the way I want to. So it's not even like a specific thing. Yes, eating earlier and paying attention to like some of those things, but all that really comes back to energy management. I feel like for me, the biggest lessons of this year in slowing down and taking, it's funny because I always say like when we say do less and do it better, most people would look at what we accomplish and it looks like a lot.
Yeah.
But we both are like actually super high performers and we are focusing on fewer things. So I feel like the work that we're doing is so much more impactful. We're so much more in our zones of genius. And even just like the gift that's been for my energy has been wild.
Totally. When you just said that, I almost got chills, because it's literally like people are spending time, and we hear this quote, I hear it all the time. It's like, you're not unhappy, you're just like not doing enough things that bring you joy. And it's actually like a lot of what has this like do less and do it better motto for Lindsay and myself has been doing less of what doesn't light us up, less of things that yes, we can do, but we don't need to be doing. And that's creating space to go more in on the things that we do love, to where the energy is different. The energy is lighter, because you can say do less and do it better, but if you're not doing more of the things that you love, like doing less isn't the answer. It's not that I'm not doing anything. It's the things that I am doing are very fulfilling. And I think the same for you.
Well, I was going to say, I am blessed and spoiled because I have someone that I work with day to day who is ruthless at telling me I need to cut things out in the best way, the most loving way. I was like literally thinking back to our meeting yesterday. I was like, we cut a lot more.
Yeah. I'm like, stop doing that. Stop doing that. Stop doing that.
And sometimes, and actually for me, like having that accountability is really helpful, whether it's if you have someone that you work with or a business bestie that like you can be really honest with, because if you're going to grow, it's going to require you to radically shift some of the things that you're doing day to day, how you're taking care of yourself, how you're managing your energy. And yes, the things that you're doing physically in your business can't stay the same if you are going to grow and step into the person that you want to become.
Totally. I agree. You know, I hope that anyone listening is able to get some inspiration around the fact that their morning routines aren't going to look like everyone else's, and like really tuning into what they all need. But I think that the most beautiful thing about this episode is just the fact that it's, you know, finding a life that makes you feel the way you do after the feeling of a really good morning routine. You know, when you've done a morning routine and it just felt so good and you feel really energized, well, that isn't going to do you any good if you're then stepping into a life that you hate. So I think that question that she asked is so powerful, because we're going from these routines and these daily rituals of really connecting with ourselves. Sometimes that is messy and hard, but then we're stepping into a life of creation, and one that are curating and ever curating. And I think it's doing a disservice if people don't add that to like the morning routine conversation, because if you're going to a job that you hate, or if you have like a lot of chaos in your life, that morning routine is not going to carry you through that. Mm-hmm. So while I do believe they're entirely beneficial, I believe it's a small piece of the puzzle to like what we really need and what's going to make us like our happiest.
So well said. And I know we can't wait to share so much more of that, especially now that we're getting to do these episodes in real life. Is there anything else, any like parting words that we want to leave with people? I'm almost thinking like the word that comes to mind is just permission, like really permission to create what works for them.
I would say check in with yourself. Like if this episode is really speaking to you, or if you know that you have been doing a morning routine, like maybe do some journaling around it and just give yourself permission to say like, that's actually not serving me. Mm-hmm. I'm doing all the things I think I should be doing, but like, what do I actually need? Mm-hmm. What do I actually need right now? And giving yourself permission to throw that checklist out the door and know that that actually doesn't make you a failure at all. That to me makes you a great success, that you are like in touch with yourself enough to know that you need something new and different.
And for me, I think on the heels of that, allowing myself to test and try different things through the lens of checking in with how I actually feel after I do that, and being willing to rewrite the script, even if every single influencer, even if Huberman is saying we all need to do these 5 things, the truth is, as women, actually our routines should shift throughout the month, and giving yourself permission to do that, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks for being my accountability and my ultimate inspo for all things routines. And we can't wait to see you guys in the next episode.